And from Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, aka BrothaTech, aka Happy Father's Day, aka Happy Juneteenth to everybody who participates. Hope everybody had a nice weekend and all the festivities, and even in today, hoping everybody is enjoying their Juneteenth holiday.
Yeah. I enjoy mine, man. My kids took me out to dinner yesterday. Hung out with my wife on Saturday, went to go see some jazz at a little jazz festival around the corner.
All right.
It was overall a good weekend.
We went to watch a Spider-Man movie, and it's kind of muggy and ugly today in Atlanta. So hung out with the family on Saturday doing some Juneteenth stuff. So just chilling today, nothing special.
Okay, same here. Anyway, let me push YouTube to the background so I don't keep looking at myself. And we should probably note that we are 2, not 3 this week. Stephanie had to drop out at the last minute, but she actually put notes in here. So she found us some stories and everything like that. So we're gonna talk about the stuff that she put in here, even though she's not able to make the show.
All this AI stuff, man, is getting on my nerves.
Man,
Oh my God.
it ain't going nowhere. And I don't think that's happening no time soon. So
there's got to be something else going on in the world.
We got some things. It's just the two of us, so we probably gonna go sideways on some things this episode. But before we get into the show, I want to let everyone know that you can watch us do the live stream and after party of the show by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/BrothaTech. We've got multiple tiers over there, any one of which gets you access to our live stream and after party, and also a couple of tiers over there get you access to a free, or I should say an ad-free stream as far as your RSS. And since this is a holiday, we went ahead and just open it up for everybody, and I put it on Twitter. So we'll see if anyone new pops in. We know it is a holiday; folks are doing other stuff, but anyway, if you would like to support the Tech John, head over to patreon.com/the-Tech-John and sign up there. So with that, man, as you were saying, it is an AI kind of week. There's just AI stories that are popping up everywhere. This first one isn't necessarily a new story. This is from a 60 Minutes, article that I saw, I don't know, probably maybe a month ago. But it's about Timnit Gebru, who is the former head of Google's AI ethics team. We've talked about her on many occasions. But one of the things that she's saying in her interview, she was being interviewed by Leslie Stahl, is that that she actually thinks that we should potentially have some type of government oversight when it comes to AI. She brought up examples of like the Food and Drug Administration. We actually have oversight when it comes to food you can eat, when it comes to drugs you put into your body, when it comes to automobiles, when it comes to a lot of things that potentially could cause the public harm. The government actually looks into that and provides some level of oversight. So I wanted to just kind of get your take as we get into these.
I'm surprised you was able to say oversight and government with a straight face, but continue.
Well, hey, it is what it is. This is someone who I tend to trust with, where she is going on this. So it's like, okay, if she's saying that, let's dig into it and figure out why she's saying it. And then I just want to get your take on it and see, is this something that you think, potentially is a good idea, bad idea, horrible idea? What say you?
Well, in general, regulation for something as disruptive as AI is probably a smart move. Now, can the United States government pull it off? That my comment earlier about government oversight, you mentioned the Food and Drug Administration. How's that working out for us?
Yeah.
FDA's oversight.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's working out too well. So, if the government were to feel like they have to do some sort of oversight as far as AI, it's going to have to be on a whole nother level. It can't be the same type of oversight that, the FDA or the FCC or all these other government entities that try their best, I guess, air quotes, but, money, dollar bills, y'all, right? The companies with the most money, the companies with the most leverage, they have been seemingly not been as affected with these current government regulatory boards. And I don't see that changing if we apply the same type of, or the customary oversight that we're used to with some of these other regulations. Again, AI is so important that absolutely, she's right. We should be paying attention to how this is used, and there should be some sort of governance, not necessarily, not exclusively federal United States regulation, but some sort of government, some sort of standards, some sort of similar practices that should be used across the board with any company that's involved. Absolutely. But it's going to be something new. It can't be what we're used to, because that ain't going to work, because it hasn't worked.
Right. So here's what put me onto this story. So I was there's a website that I frequently call Pocket, which stands for People of Color in Tech. And they had an article out in the last week or so that was basically a repost of, and I'm sorry that I wasn't thinking I was going to go here, but it was a repost of a LinkedIn story where there's actually a person who's got a fairly huge following on LinkedIn. And what this lady did was she was using Canva. We use Canva here on the Tech Jawn. There's a lot of folks who use Canva for doing images and stuff like that. And just like every other company, Canva's decided, oh, we're going to start doing some AI stuff. So the AI stuff that is rolled out with your paid Canva account, what this woman did was she actually searched for a Black woman with Bantu knots, and got a warning basically telling her that was, that it could give her undesired results, and that, the results could be unsafe. And so, of course, she contacted Canva about it. Now, they immediately worked on it, addressed the issue, and even fixed it. It's just the fact that you can actually do something like search for Bantu knots, and you either get a warning telling you that the information is going to be unsafe, or if you click past the warning, you actually will see some women with afros and in various hairstyles, but you also see things like nooses and stuff like that. And it's just like, wow, how did that get past your system? How did you not know that was something that was potential for consternation before you released this? So in reading that, that's kind of how I got
that, right?
I'm sorry.
You said the answer to that, right?
No, go ahead. Well, I do, but I'll let you tell us.
I mean, any Black woman knows what Bantu knots are. Any Black woman sitting at the table when either the testing or whatever for this new AI that Canva was rolling out, a Black woman would have easily been able to flag that and be like, you know what, let's revisit some of these hairstyles or some of these warning labels that you're putting on hairstyles. And that could have been quickly remediated before it became a problem. But now it's a problem because we ain't sitting at the table. So
I just want to be clear, because I've only known you for, I don't know, a decade or more. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you saying that if they would have had a Black woman actually at the table, that this might not have actually occurred?
Yeah, I mean, this is not.
Yeah,
this ain't. It ain't rocket science what Bantu knots are for us, for our culture, specifically for Black women and their hairstyles. So something like that could have quickly been remediated, especially if the whole point of Canva is searching for, not the whole point, but a heavy component of Canva is searching for images. So any cursory test on searching for images using AI within Canva, somebody could have quickly nipped that in the bud and clocked out and went on vacation.
So what is interesting, because once again, this is LinkedIn, and it spilled out from LinkedIn and moved over to Twitter, and it gets really bad on Twitter. So I try to stick with the comments that are on LinkedIn, because people have their name generally next to their stuff there. But, well, you have to understand. And it's like, well, how come we never have to understand when it does ridiculous things for people who have less melanin than we do? We don't have these conversations for that. Why? Because there are people who have less melanin in the room. And when you say cute pictures of infants, it doesn't return pictures of lizards. It's like, oh, you know what? We can't have people looking for pictures of babies and it's turning back pink lizards. That is not a good thing. So let's fix that before we actually release it. We need those same kind of things happening when it comes to Black women with Bantu knots. I mean, there's nothing nefarious about that. As I'm getting down into the comments, people are trying to say, well, if you go back into the pre-apartheid,
you in them comments.
Well, this was a LinkedIn. This was something that was posted on LinkedIn, so you kind of have no choice.
LinkedIn is the Twitter for people with jobs.
This is true. But what is interesting is that, like I said, why are you trying to justify this? It's like, I'm not saying that, Canva, it wasn't as bad as when you searched for Black men and gorillas came up. That is not the thing. It just gave you a warning saying that you may not get what you think you're going to get if you continue on. So I'm not as bothered by that, but it's just the fact that why do you have to go and say, well, if you go back to before apartheid was ended in South Africa, Bantu actually had a negative connotation. So that's probably why they're doing it. And it's like, for real though, you literally want to go to like the late 80s.
Nobody
92?
did all that research the same way. There was nobody available to go in and say, hey, this is not a bad thing. The same way nobody went and said, hey, this is actually a bad thing. It was just overlooked. It was just missed by Canva because the right people who would have caught it wasn't there at the time of go live.
Right. So that's one of the things that you need to look at when it comes to AI, because it's basically people are saying, well, it's just data at this point. There's no sentiment in it. And that's absolutely not the case. It's pulling all of this data from things that people have written. And as long as people are still biased when they write stuff, then these AI systems can potentially have bias in them. And like I said, just to go back to the Timney Brew story, the reason I put that at the beginning of this is because we are, we're saying, should should our government, should they do something when it comes to AI? Well, if we were to move over to Europe, Europeans take a major step towards regulating AI. And we've talked about a little bit of this before, but they've actually passed like some preliminary stuff in Parliament. So things, for example, we said pre-crime. For anybody who's seen the movie Minority Report, in that movie with Tom Cruise, they actually arrest people for crimes that they think about, not necessarily crimes that they committed, but people who think about crimes. They actually were getting arrested in this movie. Fast forward to today, this is the kind of stuff that there's a potential for with AI. So as part of this major step towards regulating AI in the EU, they actually are banning things like that. So that, the act bans use for AI for predictive policing, real-time biometric ID in public, emotion recognition for the law enforcement, border management and workspace uses, and untargeted scraping of images from internet or CCTV. So they're saying that, no, you cannot do this. You can't think that someone's going to commit a crime based off of, what the algorithm is telling you, and then go make arrest on them or go check them out first. You actually have to wait until somebody does something. Now, clearly there's people who are saying, well, I think we should be able to stop crime before it actually happens, but that's a little bit much when somebody thinks, it's like somebody thinks about doing something. AI says, we think this person potentially could do something one day, and you go hem them up. I don't think you want your government running like that. I know I don't want mine running like that.
A little bit of an oversimplification on the Minority Report, the movie. If I recall, the precogs were determining if somebody was about to commit a crime, and it was Tom Cruise's job to catch them in the act. And I think that's why his character was so good, was because he was able to catch the person right before they did the crime, using he's about to commit a crime, and he put all the pieces together. So I think even still, with the Europeans, what they're doing, it's like, you can't even bust nobody for thinking about a crime. When Minority Report, it was kind of like, all right, they're thinking about it, now catch them right before they're doing it, right in the act, right? So I think that's what made that movie so interesting, right?
It really was. But like I said, when I started thinking about this, wait a minute, you want to use AI to determine whether or not you think somebody's going to commit a crime. I know that the situation is not exactly the same, but that is what I go back to. And you're getting really dangerous when you start doing that kind of stuff, because now it's like people can't freely think stuff. Let alone act on it, right? But I just can't think stuff without an algorithm potentially marking me for somebody who needs to be looked at.
Right. So that's the thing, right? So going back to your original question, the difference between the European Union and their regulation or attempt to regulate AI versus the United States, right? Europeans are like, well, we want to nip this in the bud before it even happens. So if I'm reading this correctly, European Union is saying you can't use AI to possibly catch somebody before they commit a crime. European Union is kind of taking that step. United States will be like, well, you've already committed all these crimes using AI. Let's put a regulatory body to kind of think about what you did already 5 years ago, and then maybe we could try to catch you. But if you got enough money, you can get around it. So the question is, does it need to be regulated? Yes. Can the United States regulate it like the European Union?
Now, I haven't been everywhere in the European Union, but the cities that I have been, the big cities that I have been to in the UK or in France, they have video cameras everywhere. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I kind of took note of, and I don't think it's really any different here, because when you think about just like the number of like Ring cameras and stuff that people are putting up, what they're saying is that you can also not just scrape all of that data just for GP purposes and then use it after the fact. It's like, no, you have to have a use case as to why you're going to look at the data. And then, if the data is available to you, you can use it, but you can't just, we're just going to store all data for all time. And in case somebody, like I said, they've already, gotten rid of the ability to use predictive policing, but they're also not going to give you the ability to just get massive facial recognition databases to find out where people are, what they're doing, and all that kind of good stuff. I hope that we start thinking about some of that kind of stuff here. If we go back to our very first episode that we did almost 2 years ago, we were talking about a bruh who met a description on a picture and got hemmed up to the point to where he was arrested. And the arresting officer looked at him, looked at the picture, looked at him, looked at the picture, and said, I know this isn't you, but I still have to arrest you because the tablet is telling me that it's you. That is so problematic in so many ways. And, and people, when we even talked about that story a couple of years back, they were saying, well, what is the big deal? Once it got all cleared up, it's like, well, bruh had to, he got arrested. Number one, he may have missed work. He had to ultimately get a lawyer and he had to fight through this. Now, he ended up winning, a fairly large settlement from the city of Detroit, but you shouldn't have to go through all that. When you have we actually have a human that is saying, yeah, this is not you, but because I have to do what the tablet is telling me, or what my orders are, I'm going to arrest you anyway, even though they knew it wasn't him. That is just, that's not a hypothetical. That is things that have actually happened in our, in our country. We talked about another story where there was a young man who was arrested on a warrant for something that happened in Louisiana. He was from the state of Georgia, had never been to Louisiana. And once it got into a front of a judge, the judge says, well, why are we here? This isn't the same person. And the DA's response is, oh, well, the computer says it is. And it's like, but my eyes are telling me that it isn't. And they just dismiss it. But ultimately, that bro was hemmed up, lost his job, all kind of stuff. So there's a ton of things that we need to make sure that AI is not adversely affecting people's lives. So I would, like that, I'm like you, Terrance, is like, I don't necessarily trust the government to get regulation right. But I think that is something that we probably should think about when you look at what AI can do, what these algorithms can do, and just how disruptive to everyday life they can be if they get it wrong. So one of the other stories about AI that we're going to talk about this week. So as I said, Stephanie isn't here, but she did throw a story in here and she titled this, "Maybe AI won't kill us after all. We just got to wait it out." So there is an article in Business Insider. And essentially what this article is talking about is that If you think about what generative AI is, it doesn't actually think; it just predicts. It's as simple as I'm really breaking this down very simplistically, but essentially it just predicts what the next word is going to be based off of the volume of data that it has seen, and it's saying, well, this is what it's looked like before, this is probably what it should look like now. It's not actually thinking, it's just predicting what a word would be. So think of like predictive text when you're typing on your phone or typing on your computer, and it throws up what it thinks the next word is, and you can just hit your tab button, it automatically does it. Like I said, very simplified explanation of it, but that's essentially what generative AI is doing. So because of that, what researchers are saying is that if you just allow AI to train other AI, it's going to get worse and worse and worse every iteration. It's kind of like, back in the day when we actually used to use a copy machine and to make a physical copy. The first copy would be great. The second would probably be pretty good, but the 23rd copy, if you make a copy and then make a copy of the copy and then make a copy of the copy, eventually the resolution starts to get really, really bad, because those weren't digital copies. They were literally just taking a picture over and over and over again, and you lose information every single time. What these researchers are saying is that with AI, if you're using AI solely to train AI, it's going to get dumber and dumber and dumber every single time you go through these iterations, to the point to where it's just going to be useless. We already know that generative AI, when we think about Bard, when we think about Chat GPT, that it doesn't actually know the answers. Yeah, it's just guessing what it thinks the answer should be based off of word structure. So that's why it will lie to you. That's why it will give you incorrect information, because it doesn't actually know. It's just assuming that this is what the answer is based off of what answers have been in the past. So it's kind of interesting. I actually went and found another article about this. There is a such thing now that we call it AI anxiety, where people are really anxious about, I could lose my job. My job could be taken by AI. But when you go and you look at some of this research, it kind of shows that maybe not, when you're talking about the AI that we know today.
Well, it'll evolve. Your job will evolve. This story that you read, proves that AI cannot, or there's a case against the idea of AI being able to become sentient, or whatever they call it, based on the data it's learning from, which is our data, right? So number one, that proves that we are the virus, and like all the movies say, because it's our garbage that AI is reading and learning and trying to train other AI on. And then two, it just shows that if we need to stay involved in order to make sure that what AI is learning and what is being trained is of use, and it has nuance, and it's without bias, and it's can't be attributed across the board without any sort of case by case basis. All those things take human intervention. So yes, you may lose the job that you currently have, but your job is going to evolve into being more involved in how AI learns, what it learns, what information is using, what data structures, language models, so on and so forth. So, I mean, it's nothing new. Jobs evolve, same thing with the coal miners, same thing with some of these old jobs of past. It's like, no, we're not doing those jobs. We're doing another job. So nothing's changed with AI as far as this is concerned. Unless AI decides to kill us off, and then you got a whole nother problem, right?
Well, yeah. So when you think about service jobs where you physically are doing things, those jobs can't necessarily be replaced by AI, because they still need somebody to physically go and do the job. But when you're talking about the service jobs where you are, you're in front of a computer, it's something that could be automated. It's the same thing with, people working in a plant. Like, I grew up in the Midwest. Everyone in my family, in the generation before me, or even two, maybe sometimes even three generations before me, they worked in one of the auto plants. Every single one of them. My entire family all worked for one of the GM plants, in the town where I grew up. And when they first got in, there were jobs that they did that they physically were using their hands to do stuff. And, in doing these jobs over time, it's like they had to have a lot of people. It's like, there was a ton of people it took to do these manually labor intensive jobs. But then they started creating machines that could do it more quickly. So now, just by giving this person and training them on how to use this machine, they can do the job of what 10 people were doing on the line before. So now you don't necessarily need those 10 people on the line. You can move this over to this press that they just run, and it just does it over and over again. It's the same thing with AI. You ultimately are going to have some people who are going to lose jobs because the computer can do it more effectively, can do it more efficiently, and for less cost for the company. So companies are going to move that way. But I think that the ridiculous AI, as they're calling it here, the AI, what was the name for it? AI won't kill us. I just lost my complete train of thought, but AI nervousness. I'll just title it that.
Anxiety.
AI anxiety. And I can't even say it. AI anxiety. I think it may be overblown. And there are some good examples of what companies are doing. And it's like it's a good thing for their employees. So I had this story here about IKEA, and this is out of payments.com. And IKEA is using AI to transform call center employees into interior design advisors. So in this particular story, what the big giant store IKEA is doing is that they have 8,500 folks who answer the phones, and they're using AI to basically displace those people from that particular job. But they're not just saying we're going to get rid of these 8,500 employees. We're going to train these 8,500 employees to do something that AI can't do for us. So they actually are upskilling these employees that were like call center employees before, and now they'll be doing interior design related work for IKEA, something that AI would not be good for. So here is a company that's saying, well, yeah, we do want to use AI to be more effective, but here's an area where we need more people. If we can train the people that we already have to do this particular job, it solves a couple of issues for us. We can actually use AI to do their job, but we can actually use them to do the job that we don't have the actual sales force or workforce for right now. So I think you're going to see a lot of companies are going to ultimately do that. There's no question in my mind that jobs are ultimately going to be lost, as they are with everything else. But I think that the AI anxiety that a lot of people are experiencing right now may be overblown. It's still kind of crazy to me that AI, as we know it, basically Chat GPT, since people have started knowing what it was, Bard, all that kind of stuff, it's not even 6 months old yet. Today is what, the 19th? We have 11 more days to go before this stuff has been around for 6 months. It seems like we've been talking about it for 2 years. And no, Terrance, you're saying you're already getting tired of it. It's only been 6 months. It has not been that long. So
well, it's just, just personally, I think everybody is trying to jump on top of this so fast that we haven't, again, hasn't had time to mature yet, before we can figure out the exact or the perfect, if there's such a thing, use case for AI. I think, all of our excitement is up because news travels so fast. Technology and application of technology travel so fast that everybody feel like if you ain't first, you last. So from the news stories reporting on it, from the companies dumping a bunch of money into it, from us trying to quickly create these language models and these processing applications, we're all in a hurry. I think we'll slow down. And I think that's when the magic, quote unquote, will happen as to how we as humans find a place for AI. I just think we're just in a hurry right now because it's new, it's shiny, it's flashy. People are trying to be first because you get on the ground floor, capitalism and consumerism, you add all that stuff up in. That's why I believe it's just, when I say I'm tired of it, I'm not necessarily tired of AI. I'm just tired of how we are talking about it, how it's already being, prophesied, right? When, like you said, it ain't even been 6 months yet. Let's relax a little bit.
Not even 6 months. I mean, you would think that we've been talking about this stuff for the last 8-9 years. It has been 6 months. Clearly, we've been talking about AI for longer than 6 months. We've been talking about it with this fervor since ChatGPT rolled out back on November 30th of last year. That's when things changed. Now, here's my question to you. Have you used Bard? Have you used Chat GPT? Have you done anything on it?
I've not at all. My wife actually, and I'm the techie of the group. She's always coming to me with stuff, but she in my ear, yeah, I just used Chat GPT to do something with her. I think something with her resume or something, or LinkedIn or something like that. And I'm like, oh, here you go. I'm gonna be the old geezer, get off my lawn when it comes to AI. When normally, I'm BrothaTech. You would think I'd be the one most hyped about it. I am not.
So, are you taking one of those stands where I'm just not going to use it? I'm going to hold out for as long as possible, or you just don't see any use for it at this point?
Not no use for it. I know there's a good use cases for it. I recognize that people have come up with good use cases for it. Not necessarily holding out to as long as possible. I am waiting on the light bulb for me to go off and be like, that's it. The light bulb ain't went off yet.
Yeah. So, as I said earlier when we started the show, we do a live show. So this is being live streamed right now, and we have folks and these are regulars. These folks show up every week and are listening to us do the show. So Mr. Wayne Dixon has pointed out that my math skills is a little bit off, because November 30th actually is almost 7 months ago, not 6. So my bad. Yeah. It hasn't even been out 7 months. Let me just go ahead and rephrase that. So it hasn't even been out 7 months yet, but yeah, 6 months was the end of May. So that being said, I have a couple questions for him. I'm just going to go real left here. So 2 weeks ago, we watched what was it, WWDC 23. And they made all these announcements. The biggest announcement clearly was that new headset that's coming out, that's 3,500 bones. But my question for you is this 15-inch MacBook Air? Is that the new hotness now?
Yes, simply because it's 15 inches. I watched the review by
MKBHD.
I can never get the I just call him Marcus Brownlee because I can't figure out but anyway, I watched his review on the 15-inch MacBook Air, and when he did all the Geekbench, all the test benchmark stuff, and there was an improvement between the M1 version and the M2 version, comparing like the 14-inch M1 MacBook Air and the 15-inch M2 MacBook Air. There was a difference, but regular people's not going to notice it. So what they will notice is the 15-inch screen. Right now, I'm using a M1 Pro 16-inch MacBook Pro right now, and it's a beast. But a 15-inch, I think, is the sweet spot, especially for people who are remote, especially for people who travel, but they still want access to a bigger screen without trying to hook up external monitors and all this other stuff to make it feel like a desk space. So basically, I agree with his overall sentiment that it ain't that much of a difference. It's a noticeable difference if you're into doing what he's doing, video editing, rendering, all those things. Most people are not. Most people are going to be attracted to the screen, and at the same price, if not $100 more. And that's before you do the upgrades. I think the base model comes with like 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes of flash storage. If you go up to 512 gigabytes of flash storage and 16 gigs of RAM, which is memory, you're probably up to almost $2,000. But again, with the durability and the design and the lifelongness of a MacBook Air, that's money well spent, especially now with the Macs. You can't upgrade them after the fact. So most people are not going to spend the $11.99 or $12.99, however much it costs out the box. But you're at $2,000 with, some decent upgrades. You got a nice computer for a long time, which was his ultimate sentiment in his review.
Right. So we talk about this on the show regularly. I am an Android user and I am a PC user. But I can tell you that I'm not a PC user because I just believe, oh, well, PCs are just better than Macs or Macs are just better than PCs. It's just the device that I tend to use. Now, there used to be a Mac cost, or an Apple. What was it called? The Apple tax.
Apple
There,
tax.
there used to be an Apple tax, and now I think if you were to take a similarly configured, let's say like a Dell XPS to the MacBook 15-inch. Well, to get it configured, like you said, that bump the memory up to 16 gigs, bump the SSD up from 256 up to 512. You're now at what? Probably $2,000. Well, on an XPS that is similarly configured to that, you might be like 1899 to 1949 or something. So you're talking about, well, yeah, it may be a little bit less expensive, but it's not like you were talking about, well, the Mac is $2,000 and the Dell is 1,200, because that's significant. That's where you're going to really make a decision. Well, it's kind of like this. Well, you know what? Sometimes, when you think about Mac, it is, I believe, Terrance, correct me if I'm wrong, it is the best selling laptop right now. It's not the number one laptop that is used, but it is the number one laptop as far as how many of them are sold. There's just so many other Windows PCs that are sold that Windows still is significantly bigger than just the user base for Mac. But me personally, I don't see any reason why I couldn't get that, because I still have my workhorse that is closer to a $3,500 PC that's not going anywhere, at least for the next 2 years. I've actually just, or not just, but I'm about to extend my my warranty on it. And I will get a good 5.5 years out of this laptop. But this laptop essentially could have been a desktop. I never take it anywhere. It's big, it's bulky. I've got a docking station. I've got all kind of stuff plugged into it for me to do what I want to do. A nice smaller laptop would just be easier to carry around. Like, I'm going on vacation tomorrow morning. It would be easier if I were going to take a laptop with me to take like a small MacBook, even a 15-inch MacBook Air, than to take this behemoth from a weight standpoint. And just, I don't necessarily want to take all of this if I could have something smaller. So I've really been thinking about lately. It's like, hey, you know what? I could actually get a Mac. There are things that there's an application that I actually quite like. It's a bit much to use maybe for what we do, but if you are into live streaming, significantly so, Ecamm Live is a nice app. I think you've used it before, right? It's a bit much for what we're doing, but if you are really into lower thirds and dynamic changes, all the kind of stuff that you see, all of that kind of stuff,
screen, right?
Is basically, if you're on a Mac, you use Ecamm Live. If you're on anything else, you use OBS. And so there's no shade at OBS. OBS is really, really good software, and it's free. It can do pretty much everything that I shouldn't say everything. It can do many of the things that Ecamm Live can do, and many things that Ecamm Live can't do. But Ecamm Live, as a package offering for something that you're going to pay for, it is a really, really slick piece of software. And right now is the only reason I have a active. Like, there's a Mac sitting behind me somewhere that I actually use, and that's the only thing that I use it for. So it's not fast enough for me to do editing on. It's not fast enough. Even like, I could do a little bit of audio editing, but like any video stuff, this beast that I'm on right now is going to get stuff done literally eons quicker than that will, because this machine was designed to do that. But I was thinking, I get a MacBook Air at 15-inch. I might actually be able to do some lightweight video editing on there. It would definitely run OBS.
You could do more than lightweight.
Just fine.
You could do more than lightweight. So while you were talking real quick, I went on the Apple website, and the newest 15-inch MacBook Air with 16 gigs of unified memory, 512 gigabytes of SSD storage before tax will run you $1,700. With tax, that's about $2,000. So that just to reiterate the point that the Apple tax, is what people called it, almost non-existent. I'm pretty sure you could get a bare bones PC for less than that, but not very much.
Not very much, because just like,
go ahead.
I was going to say, like, There was a time when I actually used to build PCs, but the problem with that is that when something breaks, you have to fix it. I've had this Dell XPS since Christmas of 2019. So it's going on, it's 3.5 years, going on 4 years old. I think I've done 3 service calls on it. And I called Dell and they ship a part. I called Dell and they ship me a new PC. I don't have to do anything. That is worth not being able to go inside myself and change the memory out, go inside myself and change the hard drive out. I don't want to do that. This is a work machine. It's not a hobby machine. It's a machine that I'm actually doing a job on. So it's more akin of a machine that I would have if I was working in the corporate world. And, so Macs are kind of always like that, but it's like, there is a benefit to not having to worry about it. It's like, this thing is just going to work. You get your Apple Care on it. If it breaks, you take it to you take it and they fix it or they hand you a new one. I think have I told a story about my daughter, my oldest daughter? She got a brand new MacBook Pro. I bought it for her for Christmas the year before she went off to college. And she opened the MacBook up. Before she even turned it on, she dropped it and put a dent in the screen. So she was just devastated. She didn't even turn it on and had and damaged it. So she's all worried. We're all worried. So the day after Christmas, we go down to the Apple store. She's got tears in her eyes. What do they call them? The Genius, from the Genius bar. He comes out and it's like, oh my gosh, what happened? It's like, I opened it up and I dropped it when I was opening up because I was excited. He was like, wait here. He just went and grabbed one, brought it out and said, just replace it. And I don't know that that's how Apple Care should have worked, but it worked for me. And I have been all in on that. I will never forget that. That was in 2014. And I have not had a problem buying any Apple devices ever since then. Get Apple Care on everything. So for me, this is me saying that I don't know that I'm switching because my workhorse machine is not going anywhere, but I have room on my desk that I can have another machine. And I could absolutely see that being a 15-inch MacBook Air. So looking at the clock here, we have a spotlight this week. Now, our spotlight is a little different than what we normally do. We're not spotlighting a person. We're actually spotlighting Juneteenth. So let me go ahead and bring up my notes and let's start talking about what is Juneteenth. So Juneteenth, short for June 19th, marks the day when the federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865 to take control of the state and ensure that all enslaved people be freed. The troops' arrival came a full 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. Juneteenth honors the end of slavery in the United States and is considered the longest running African-American holiday. On June 17th, 2021, it officially became a federal holiday, and that is why many of us today have the day off. Now, some of y'all might be thinking, didn't the Civil War end in April of 1865? And if so, why is the Black Independence Day all the way in the middle of June? Well, there never was a lot of fighting during the Civil War in Texas. And since there weren't any Union troops there to tell slaves that they were free, Texas slave owners just kept it going, figuring that they could squeeze out another harvest season without actually telling their slaves that they were free. It was Union General Gordon Granger's arrival in Galveston in June of 1865 that signaled freedom for Texas's 250,000 enslaved people. The year following, in 1866, freedmen in Texas organized the first to be what is known as the celebration of Jubilee Day on June 19th. It is ensuing decades of Juneteenth commemorations, which featured music, barbecues, prayer services, and other activities. And as Black people migrated from Texas to other parts of the country, the Juneteenth tradition spread. So Juneteenth is, it is basically the day that the African Americans were freed. It was the day that they actually found out that they were. In Texas, they kept it running for a few extra months. But I just thought, with today being Juneteenth, us doing the show, we should actually spotlight why the holiday is. And Terrance, you will be proud. I did not get into the comments on this, but there's a lot of folks that are upset that we have a federal holiday for this. A lot of folks.
For this in general, or what? Since you said you didn't get into the comments, so
I didn't get into the comments. I'm just going from like what I see on the news and stuff like that. There's a lot of folks who just they just they don't believe that this should be celebrated. It's like this is in the past. Why are we celebrating this? Why can't everybody just celebrate Independence Day for America? Why does there have to be a separate Independence Day for Black Americans? I think that's pretty obvious to me. The fact that we weren't free, we didn't have an Independence Day, we weren't citizens, we weren't people before, before slavery was in it. But
I don't know the exact quote, but it says, to all of us are free, none of us are free. So to co-sign what you already said, the reason why Independence Day, July 4th, whatever you want to call it, really doesn't make sense for Black folks is because while America was free from British, African Americans were not free from Americans, right?
really,
So, for the most part of a couple hundred years, 4th of July has had a bad taste. It's a bittersweet thing. Before officially, personally, before officially celebrating Juneteenth, me, getting growing even more militant as I get older. I started not celebrating the 4th of July in a traditional sense. And in a traditional sense, barbecue, hang out, fireworks, that sort of thing. It was just kind of like another day, So I was like, all right, well, let me replace it with something. And I'd say maybe 10 years ago, started deciding to celebrate Juneteenth, and as we've progressed in the past, maybe 5 years, started taking Juneteenth more seriously across the board. I don't know if that, the in the wake of George Floyd, all of those things kind of catapulted the talk of, okay, well, let's there's a difference in how we're being treated, then why don't we go ahead and decide what type of celebrations we're going to take part in, right? So that's when I think kind of Juneteenth kind of catapulted to the front of the conversation to where now it is a federal holiday. But you gonna say something?
It's really recent history. It was June 17th of 2021 when Joe Biden actually signed it into becoming an actual national holiday, to where a federal holiday, I should say, where banks and many businesses are actually closed down today for that holiday. So that was just in June of 2021. So yeah, you're probably right. It's right on the back of George Floyd back in June of 2021. That was literally like a year and a month after the George Floyd incident. It was still fresh in people's minds, and you still have people wanting to do a lot. What I didn't realize was that Juneteenth was actually a holiday in Texas going all the way back to 79. So Texas was the first state to actually make it a state holiday back in 1979. And there were actually several other states that have actually done that as well. And, as I was reading, the article that I pulled everything from, it was, it basically said that as people migrated from Texas, it kind of just got spread out. These were the kind of things when I actually was in college that I studied. So I knew about Juneteenth all the way going back into the early 90s, because this is the kind of stuff I was studying when I was in school. But I really don't remember people talking about it really until maybe the last 6, 7, 8 years. I think it's just one of those things to where, oh wow, y'all, we have Juneteenth off today. I remember somebody saying that who lived in the state of Texas, like, oh wow, it's like a holiday like that there. Y'all actually get the day. I was like, yeah, it's a federal holiday, or not a federal, it's a state holiday here, so we actually get the day off. That's relatively recent. So
yeah, I moved into this house in 2016, and probably one of the first things we did, outside of my son being born, because that's the whole reason why we moved in the first place. We were pregnant with our third child. We need more space. So after our baby shower and his homecoming service, I think the next thing we celebrated was Juneteenth, because like I mentioned, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more, 10 years ago, I was like, all right, I'm done with the 4th of July. What else can I do? So I started looking into Juneteenth. So I made it, that was the first thing we did when we moved into this house, back in 2017, was celebrate Juneteenth. And ever since then, I'm glad that is starting to pick up importance because it is American history. And for all those that say, why are we celebrating things in the past? No, we're actually celebrating history. It's
Hmm.
important. It is an important piece of African American history specifically, just going back off the thing I mentioned before with, whole 4th of July and Black Americans feeling some kind of way about it, even though America was free, we wasn't free. Same thing goes with Juneteenth, right? Even though Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, declaring that slavery was illegal,
In
we
a
still
country
wasn't.
that
There was
wasn't
some,
yours. Think
right,
about that for a second. Like the Emancipation Proclamation did not free anybody. It said that you were
we were
free if you were in part of part of the country that
that
part of
hurting.
the Confederacy that was no longer part of the United States that has seceded from your country. So that's like me saying I'm freeing your children from doing chores at your house. Like, how does that work? It's like I
Right.
don't get to control that. You control what you do at your house.
Right. So same
So
thing, to take that same application, right? Even though we were free with the Emancipation Proclamation, till all of us are free, none of us are free. So that's the significance of Juneteenth, because the last slaves down in Texas, like you mentioned, found out that they were free. Since they had finally got their freedom, that's when we celebrate Juneteenth, not necessarily when we were announced, quote unquote, that we were free 2 or 3 years prior to.
I mean, just think about that. Texas was part of the South. It lost the war. Um, these
Still salty about it. To
these
this day.
people are free. They no longer are slaves by law, something that your state ratified. But what the slave owners did, what the slave owners did, they's like, well, they don't know, and we got to get these crops in. We got to go eat the sugar cane real, right fast. So we ain't gonna holler at them. We just gonna keep the status quo. It is not until, as I said, General Granger rolls up to Galveston and is like, all right, you got 250,000 people here that you still have working for free. This is not how this is going to work anymore. So it took the union actually physically going there to make this happen. And it is a big deal. Is why do we celebrate it? Because like I said before, that our people that were there were enslaved. After that, they were not. That is a big thing to celebrate. You have to
And it's
wonder
American history.
sometimes. It's American history. You're going to have to wonder
Simple as that.
sometimes. It's like, well, we had this holiday. Can you even talk about why it was? Because depending on what state you live in, they might want to ban books to where you even talk about the people were actually slaves, because that might make kids feel bad about it. But that's neither here nor there. I'm not going to take the show down that rabbit hole. But Juneteenth, it is a federal holiday. I'm glad that it is, and I hope everybody listening got to enjoy your day today. So, Mr. Gaines, why don't you go ahead and tell folks how they can get it? Oh, actually, should say this. We did not have a new patron this week, but we did get a raise this week. Now, I'm going to assume that this is an alias because we got a raise from Homer Simpson. But we appreciate Homer Simpson because they gave us a raise. So we do want to shout you out, and let you know that we appreciate what you're doing for us. We did not have any new patrons, but if anyone would like to support the Tech Jawn, where we can actually bring technology to you the way that we bring it to you, once again, head over to patreon.com/thetech, JAWN. Sheree is saying no. With Homer Simpson. But yeah, thank you, Homer Simpson. We appreciate you. So, Terrance, why don't you go ahead and tell folks how they can get at you?
Yeah, you can find me all over the internet at BrothaTech. That's BrothaTech.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things. And we are also at The Tech Jawn on all the things. So come holla at us wherever you holla. Until we meet again in 2 weeks, or 2 weeks time, in 1 week's time. Peace.